In this video, we're going to take a look at Warlock and some of the expansion material I have to support this game. So let's get into it. Welcome to Solitary RPG. Warlock, Trader's Edition. Warlock is a British OSR style game. I kind of see this game as a blending of the old fighting fantasy choose your own adventure style game with the mechanics. Pretty simple, straightforward. However, blended in with the career system from Warhammer Fantasy RPG. The Trader's Edition is the second printing of the book. And really the only changes they made, it has a lot to do with the format of the book and the art in the book. Just made some simple changes. If you go on to RPG and you're looking at Warlock, the first printing will have these kind of brown covers on them. And this is my made copy of the book. You can see the text font looks like a typewriter, which I kind of appreciate as far as a look goes, but it's pretty plain. The art is very reminiscent of OSR style art, but with the Trader's Edition, they've made a lot of improvements to the book layout and also to the art. This is all put out by Fire Ruby Designs. The writer is Greg Saunders, and then here's a list of the artists that help put the book together. And you can already see the font's already changed, and it's just more, I don't know, modern looking font. You'll start out with a welcome to Warlock and what this game is all about. This is a game about immersion. This is not a game about your character sheet. And it's the players telling the GM what their characters are doing in the game, and the GM is deciding if they need to make a roll or what happens because of their decisions. It's not about playing your character sheet and trying to min-max everything and looking at, numbers and trying to just get the best benefit for yourself. You just respond to what the GM is presenting to you. The first big layout change, first you're going to see they've added some new art to the pages. But what I really like are the tabs that they've put into the game. So when you're going and you're looking for something, you can just flip through your book. And it's just real easy to find what section of the book you're looking for your gameplay, just to make it easier to get around the book. But you get a little introduction page, what the players are and everything. The golden rule, this is really cool. Just have fun. This is a game about having fun, but it is a brutal game in combat, and we'll get a little bit more into that as we go through the rules. This isn't about fighting. This is about adventuring and maybe getting around combats or avoiding combats. So we'll get into that. You get a little blurb about the world of Warlock. There's not a lot of information in the core rulebook about the world, but there are plenty of supplements, and we'll take a look at those, helping flesh out the world of Warlock. And there's lots of books on Drive Thru RPG that you can choose from to help you with that. Character creation. What you'll want to do is, give your character a name and decide what type of a character you want to create. Do you want a fighter, a thief, a warlock, or a wizard, politician, entertainer? What do you want to create? And then you're going to assign points to the skills. And this is the link into Warhammer Fantasy, that on the character sheet you'll have all of these different skills. What you'll start with for your beginning skills is on 10 of those skills you'll start at level 6. And then 10 more of them will be at level 5, and the rest of them will be at level 4. You are an experienced person in this game. You are not starting out with someone that has no skills. You have skills and everything. You're a jack of all trades. It's just the value, and some of them are higher because that's what you have focused on. Just that simple. Your stamina or your hit points, roll 2d6, add 12. Those are your hit points or your stamina so that your character can stay alive in the game. Luck is a really cool mechanic in this game. You may want to make a luck check, or the GM may tell you to make a luck check. You'll roll your d20, add your luck value, which is 1d6 plus 7. If you succeed, great, you got lucky. If you did not succeed, you were unlucky. But this is a resource. Every time you use your luck, you deduct a point from that level. So as you use your luck, it starts to diminish and you start becoming unlucky really quickly. So it's one of those resources you want to maintain. You have communities in this game, so this is where you've learned all your skills. Which community do you belong to? Are you a human, an elf, a dwarf, or a halfling? These communities don't give you any bonuses to your dice rolls or your skill levels. They give you kind of seed information or background information to help you better play your character. Humans are the most popular communities in the world of Warlock, but you can be an elf, and if you are playing an elf, gives you some background information, but then they give you some, we'll say, personality information. Elves are beautiful, graceful, and can see in the moonlight as well as in the day. So they don't have night vision, but they can see in the moonlight better than humans. However, they are treated with mild suspicion by most folks and can all too often develop contempt for their lesser fellows. So they're a little stuck up on themselves. So that just gives you some seed information to better help you play that particular community. Careers and skills really make up the majority of your character that you're playing. So you've already decided what style character you want to develop, and you've assigned those skill points. Now you want to choose your career. You can either pick a career that's in the game, or you can roll on a chart and kind of narrow down your selection. Once you've chosen your career, each basic career will have 5 skills that you're going to focus on. And within those 5 skills, you're going to assign 10 more points to increase those levels. And there are restrictions. So if we look at a career, so we got the agitator here. The skill maximum levels are listed. So small blade can't go over 10. Intimidate 10, dodge 12, persuasion 12, and streetwise 12. So you'll have some more points to assign to those particular skills, and that just makes you better at the career you are in. So now that you understand that, the book will then go into all of the different skills that are listed just to give you a better sense of what those skills are and how to use them in gameplay. But then you come to the career skill. So when we look at our agitator again, we have these 5 skills that we're going to be focusing on. The skill that has the lowest value will become your career skill. And a career skill is kind of a catch-all skill. So if I'm playing an agitator and I'm looking at the character sheet and there's something I want to do in the game, but it doesn't really fit any of these skills, I can then describe what I'm doing and that I want to use my career skill. The GM will decide if that fits, and if it fits, then you just make a roll using your value that you have for your career skill to pass or fail. It's just a catch-all skill. Your career skill is always just going to be the title of the career that you have. So if you're playing an outlaw, your career skill will just be outlaw. Every character is going to start with some basic equipment: 2d6 silver, backpack, 3 days food, water skin, eating knife, clothes, and boots. So you have some starting equipment, but then you want to choose your basic career. You can just choose it. You do not have to roll for it. But if you want to be a little bit more random about it, you have this chart. You'll take 4d6 You'll roll them one at a time. So this is a 3. You'll just put it in one of these categories here. Another 3. Another 3. Let's see what goes on here. A 2. And then you'll just look at the list here. So 3 here is a boatman, grave robber, noble, or road warden. And you'll just pick one of those 4 that best fit your character that you're developing. And then you get into all of the different careers. Each career will give you some background information. It'll give you a list of additional equipment that you're going to add to your character. And then it'll list out your skills that you're going to focus on in that career. When you advance in this game, the GM will give you points at the end of each session. You can only advance these skills. You cannot advance any of your skills outside of the ones linked to your career. Then you have a chart in each one of the careers. This is seed information for the GM to pull from. Who have you worked for? Who's hunting you? This is just some basic information to help out with that immersion in the gameplay. Then it just goes into all of the different careers. And there's quite a few of them to choose from, just to really make a well-rounded party for the game. And I just kind of like it. At the very end, you'll have some traits. These will be personality traits that you can choose from just to help you better play your character. So you have some of the information in the communities that will help you develop the character's personality. And you'll have some traits that you can also choose from to really help out with the personality of your character. We'll get into equipment. It says a pretty straightforward economy. 10 pennies make up 1 silver. 10 silvers make up 1 gold. Not that hard. Pennies are used mostly among commoners, so peasants usually buy things in pennies. Silver is the currency of artisan or traders, kind of your middle class. You're already starting with 2d6 silver, so you will most likely be middle class. And then gold is used by the nobles in the upper class. And you will start out with a little bit of silver. You can come over here to this chart to buy some additional equipment that was not given to you during character creation. You're going to notice right off the bat there are no values for damage on any of this equipment. There's a general chart in the back kind of grouping weapons together and having the damage listed there. But you'll start with commoner items. These things cost pennies. Some things will be 2d6 pennies. Same thing here for silver. Some things will cost more. And then upper class gold with some different values. One of the things I like about rolling some of these values is you can take the result of the roll to describe the condition of the weapon. So let's take the most expensive thing, which is plate armor. It costs 4d6 gold. So you will roll your 4d6. And we got a pretty high roll, so that's going to be some expensive stuff. But let's say we got a low roll, so we just got kind of like cheaper plate armor. We can use that lower value to help describe, or higher value, the condition of the equipment. So I bought full plate armor for 7 gold, which seems pretty cheap. I can say maybe it's battle worn, it's got some damage, and I might have to spend some additional gold to get it repaired. That's up to you. You could just take that result and say you got lucky. There are gods in the game. You can choose one of these gods for your character just to give them some of those morals and values in the world of Warlock. So majority of the beginning of the book is character creation. A lot of the character creation pages are taken up with all the different career types. Then we get into the core rules. You're going to make basically 2 types of checks in this game. You're going to have a skill check and an opposed check. Skill checks are used when your characters are imposing themselves on the world. So we're trying to do something to an object in the world. I want to lift a heavy rock. I'm going to use, like a strength skill. I'm going to roll a d20. I rolled a 16. I'll find the skill that's linked to that, or I could just use my career skill if one is not linked. I will add that value. I succeed on a 20. Anything below a 20, I fail. Opposed checks are where you and either the GM or another player are going to make a roll. If you're up against another player, let's say we're having a battle of wits and we roll our d20s, we add whatever value for the skills that would fit the situation to it. Whoever rolls highest wins. This is also how combat is done. In combat, I would make my roll, add my skill value. Let's say I'm fighting with a sword. The GM would roll their dice, add the skill value from the encounter, if it's another person or a creature, and whoever wins that roll with rolling the highest is the one that is going to win that combat or that opposed roll, and whatever happens from there happens. You also have luck. Kind of talked about luck already. You're going to roll your d20, add your luck value. If you succeed, you're lucky. If you fail, you're unlucky. However, you're always going to decrease that value by 1 every time you use your luck. So luck is one of those things you want to be careful not overusing. Improving your character in the game. At the end of each session, the GM can give you 1 to 3 points. Those points are used to increase your career skills in the game. And when we're talking about character creation, you do have your career skill, your general skill, and that is equal to the value of the lowest of your 5 skills. If you increase your lowest skill, that will also gain you a point of stamina. So it actually encourages you to focus on that one skill that you're not really good at, but there's a benefit to focusing on that skill because you will gain stamina and increase your career skill. I like games that offer that, so that way people just aren't maxing out the one skill that they have that they're best at, just trying to make themselves, really good at one thing. You kind of want to be good at everything for your character, and if you do focus on those lower skill values, you can increase your career skill and also increase your stamina. You can change your careers in this game. If you've been playing for a little bit and you've kind of gotten comfortable with all of the skills linked to your career and you want to now change careers, what you'll have to do is save up some of the points assigned to you by the GM after sessions. It costs 5 points to change careers. And once you change careers, you'll just make some changes to your character sheet. And you're going to change your skills that you're focused on. And you just kind of move over. You do not change any of your values and your skills. Those stay the same. Even if one of your skills goes beyond the maximum value for that career, you still keep your original value. It kind of represents that you are just better at that. You were in a career before. You've really developed certain skills in that career, and now you're just moving to, it's like changing jobs. It's the same thing. You're just going to now focus on some new skills. In the advanced careers, if you've flipped over, in your basic careers, you have 5 skills that you focus on. Your advanced careers give you 6 skills, and the values are higher. So you really want to get into those advanced careers. There's also required equipment. So before you can move into some of these careers, you're going to have to find some equipment or purchase some equipment so that you can advance. And there's just a good selection of advanced careers. These are higher positions in the world of Warlock. Now we're going to get into combat. Combat in this game is deadly. You are encouraged to try to avoid combat. However, combat will eventually happen. And one of the things about this game is when you start losing combat, if the person you're fighting is starting to lose, they're probably going to run away. This isn't a game about going around just hacking and slashing. This is really a game about adventure. That's why combat is deadly. Your characters will die in this game if you're not careful. But if a combat is taking place and you start losing, you want to flee, you want to survive, you do want to live in this world, you want to keep your characters alive. It's going to go over, the rounds, who goes first. There's no initiative value. Really, the GM's going to decide if one party has surprise or not. If you have surprise over the person you are going to get in combat with, like you set up an ambush for some thieves that have been stealing from the peasants on a road, and you set up an ambush, then you would have surprise, you would have the initiative. Could also go the other way. You got set up for an ambush, and then the combatants would have the surprise. If you do not have surprise in the game or in the scenario, then you just roll a d6. Whoever rolls highest has the initiative. One of the benefits for having initiative is in melee combat, you'll get a bonus for the first round of combat to make that first round go better for you. Talking about combat actions, you can move, you got melee attacks, you have ranged attacks. Right here on page 78, it talks about having a bonus of 5 for your skill check for having initiative. I just use that for the first round of combat. After the first round of combat is over, the +5 goes away. You could roll again each round of combat for that initiative if you want. That's up to you, keeping that +5 going for each round. But in my mind, once combat started, we get the +5 for the first round. After that, we're engaged, we're fighting, and there is no more bonus there. It's just going to go back and forth until somebody runs away or somebody no longer is with us. Ranged attacks, they will not get any kind of surprise bonus for ranged attacks. The only penalty that would take place is you could be at a -5 if you're shooting at long range, which makes sense to me. But if you're in normal range, and there's no range ban, you as the GM would just decide, yeah, that's normal range. No penalties applied. Nope, that's at long range. You have a -5 to your roll. Shields. So if you're shooting at somebody and they have a shield and they're aware that you're going to be shooting at them, they will have a bonus to their dodge, like using their shield to block the arrow. For small shields, it's a 3. For large shields, it's a 5. So they get a little bit of a bonus for having those shields. But if the person's unaware, there's no benefit to that. Then we get into damage here. These are the categories that your weapon will fall into, because you can make up your own weapons, but they would just fall into one of these categories. And then here are the damage results. So if you're just fighting with your hands and you succeed in that brawl, you'd roll 1d6 -2, and it will be crushing damage. And the type of damage comes into play when we get further into the combat, talking about how the damage affects the character. There is a mighty strike, which will actually make your damage better if you roll 3 times the result of the defender. So the defender has a terrible roll and you have a great roll and you're 3 times the result. Then what you're going to do is you're going to roll your damage dice to determine the loss and add modifiers as usual, but it's doubling the results lost of the stamina. So that can happen in the game, and I think that's really cool. It's not necessarily rolling the 20 on a d20. It's the result that you roll, and maybe the person you're fighting against, stumbled, and you got a really good shot on them, and you rolled really well. Boom, you've done a mighty strike. Armor is pretty straightforward. It's not set values in the game. You do roll a dice for how that armor works, kind of maybe representing the way the armor fits you, and some spots are open, some spots aren't. But you have basic armor, which is going to reduce the damage by d3, modest armor d6, and heavy armor by 2d6. Shields will also increase the level by 1 rank. So if you have basic armor and a shield, you would then go to modest armor because the shield is going to help protect you. I really like that. Then you also have some armor types here listed so that you have some ideas. The one thing about armor, if the result would take it to 0 or below, it still does 1 point of damage if they get a hit. So you cannot completely block a success. It's just reduced down to 1. So you still get hit. You're still going to take 1 point of damage. Now we get into the damage effects. The most important one here are the critical hits. If a character takes damage that brings them to below 0 stamina, this is a critical hit. To determine the effect, roll a d6 on the critical tables, which we'll talk about, and cross-reference for the type of weapons used. And what you'll do is, here's a critical hit for slashing. You'll roll your d6 and the value of negative stamina. If you take them below 0, you're going to modify your dice roll. So you roll your dice. I rolled a 5. Let's say I'm 2 below, so I take it to 7. And here's what happens. Whoops. 1d fingers sliced off randomly. Determine hand, drop what you're carrying. So now you have a character flaw to add to your character, and you have a result. You have to drop what you're carrying in that hand because you just lost some fingers. So I think that's really cool. And you got slashing, piercing, crushing, and blast, like from a magic effect. When you get into these higher values, though, you're just dead. So going below the stamina is really what you're looking for those critical successes, trying to increase the number so that you are killing the opponents that you're fighting. And as we move on, we get into magic. What's neat about magic in this game is you're only going to kind of start out with one spell, and people that are playing magic users are really on a quest to go out and find more spells, find scrolls, find other things. Everybody in the world can cast magic. If you're not focused on magic, your skill values in those are going to be really low, but you may succeed at it. Magic can be a scroll, a book, things of that nature, but anyone can use it. It does cost you stamina points, though, to use magic. So you're not just casting magic over and over and over again. You start losing your stamina point, you become weaker because the magic is pulling your strength out, and you can create your own spells in this game, and there's a miscast table. Really good. I don't play a lot of magic users. It's really not my thing. I like that lower fantasy where magic is maybe forbidden or it's used by people that are evil, so you may go against somebody that's a magic user. But you can play a magic user. You have charts you can roll on to randomize what spells you get, and then you have a list of all the spells and how they work in the game and their stamina cost. Then we get into the bestiary. These are all your creatures and everything like that. Now, creatures in this game do not have specific skills. They do not have a fighting skill with like a sword or anything like that. They have a very general skill listed for the description, and that's just their adventuring skill. Just like you have a career skill, which is your catch-all skill, they have an adventuring skill that's their catch-all, and they'll use that for their combat and everything like that. But you have some basic information about the different parts, the breakdown of the description, some of the effects and how they will affect the characters in the game, and then you just get into all the different creatures you may encounter. You have additional information for the game master, basically how the game works, sitting down, having the conversation with the players, trying to get an idea of what they're trying to accomplish, and then creating the adventure around that. This is your GM advice. So that's just a quick look at the core rules of Warlock. Now we're going to take a look at Kingdom. Kingdom is a setting book for Warlock, and it's called The Kingdom, but it's actually Fesselmark. But in the world of Warlock, people just refer to it as The Kingdom. And this book is just going to give you background information about the kingdom itself and some of their cultures. So, like, what are people, celebrating in the kingdom and the royal family? And it's just going to continue going on. There's information about something bad that happened, the traitor to the kingdom, and something that's in the world. And then you have all these different locations within the kingdom that are broken down for you so that you have places to explore and things to look at. And so you're better aware of the area. And this is going to break each one of those spaces down, giving you some background information. So this is really a GM's book, giving you all that background information. So when you're playing and your characters end up in the kingdom, you have information to pull from to help better describe it. You have some charts you can roll on to create maybe encounters or something that happens when they're there. And then you have another city location within the kingdom. It's the Grim Bisker staff. And this just breaks down that city. I really like this map of the city. But you have all the locations keyed so you know where they're at in this map, background information. But each keyed location in the book will have this little section here, like an image, so you kind of have a better idea of where it's at, kind of a zoomed in look at those locations. You do have some charts you can roll on. Yeah, this is just really going to give you a great look at the kingdom and some locations around the kingdom, so that way your adventurers can go exploring and you have some information to pull from. Also, there's the under tunnels. Now, the under tunnels are not mapped out in this game, and this is where you can use some of your dungeon generation tools that you have, or whatever you want to create for your under tunnels. But this might be exploring the sewers or just exploring some secret passages underneath the city. And also, some of the locations might have some people in the area, some civilians that you can use in your game. You'll have organizations in the city. And then you have noted citizenry. So these are the main people, the main characters in the cities that you can have your characters run into, or maybe they have to go seek out and give information. And then there's some charts you may be able to roll on just to help kind of interact with them. And then at the end, there's some small adventures, seeds that you can start out with for the game when they enter into one of these cities, just giving them something to do. Now we'll take a look at the compendium. There are 4 compendiums out for Warlock that you can pick up. 2 of them are still under the first printing with the brown cover. 3 and 4 are been updated for the Trader's Edition. And this is just going to give more information for the GM to pull from. There's a big section about the kingdom, so you can use this compendium along with the kingdom book to give you some more charts and background. And then you also have some additional information for combat, adding stances to combat, and just more information to expand the world of Warlock. So here are some charts you can roll on when you're in the kingdom for maybe some adventure seed information. So this is actually really good with the kingdom supplement, because with that you'll have all the different locations, and then you can roll from some of these charts to create the event that's going to take place. And there's quite a few of them. Again, more of a GM's book than a player's book. I love the bad potion effects. So if you take a bad potion, you have some effects that will have a result to your characters. Also, there's stuff in here about strange mushrooms, and maybe you eat a strange mushroom and something happens to you. So there's some good charts in here. So for the most part, the kingdom section is just random charts you're going to roll on to create adventure information. You have twisted non-humans. So these may not be beasts or monsters in the bestiary. These are going to just be non-humans. They give you a chart to roll on to get a description of your non-humans, which is really just a creative way to create some different encounters, or maybe some twisted magic or miscast information happened and you've created some non-humans, and just gives you a lot of information to pull from just to have some fun in the game. Original Warhammer Fantasy was a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, so it's kind of adding to that. Then you have optional combat rules. This is talking about stances and the benefit you'll get if you're taking some of these different stances. So if you're reckless, if you're taking a reckless stance and you're pushing for the damage, if the winner of that opposed roll would add their damage dice twice and inflict the higher result. So if you're reckless and you lose the combat and the opposed combatant wins, they would get to roll their damage twice and pick the higher result. A neutral stance is just that. You are just preparing for the combat. And then you have a time stance. And then we get into more critical results for creatures. And this is taking some of their attacks, like their claws and their sting or their fangs, and giving you a chart to roll on to better describe the injury that your characters are taking. And it just gets into a bunch of these different charts that you can roll on. You also have a fumble chart. So if you roll terribly, you get the 1 on the D20, you fumbled. And you have some charts here that you can roll on to better describe that fumble, which is really cool. And blunt weapon fumbles, and then blessed by the gods, you rolled the natural 20 and you're blessed. So you have like that great success. And you have some charts you can roll on to help better describe that. And then the spoils of war, this is kind of like a treasure table. So a lot of the additional rules just add to the core rules. And then you have this vagabond play, or playing with just one player and a GM, and it goes into real deep information about how you would play that. Couple different options. Obviously one option is the player plays multiple characters, but they could also just focus on their one character. Both the GM and the players can play the additional characters. That's one way of doing it. These are not solo rules. These are not using oracles or anything like that. This is still set up for a GM and a player, and going over some of the ways that you can play with just one player. It's basic information. I have not explored any of these rules in this part of the book, mainly because I play solo. I already know how to play solo. I have my ways of playing solo. It's good information, but I already have a way of doing all of that stuff. But it just goes into how you would make changes to advance the character, some things you would do in fighting, just kind of rewriting the core rules a little bit, knowing that you only have one player and their main focus is advancing that one player, which can happen. And that's pretty much your compendium number 3. Like I said, there's 4 compendiums out for Warlock. 3 and 4 have been redone in the Trader's Edition. 1 and 2 are still under the first printing of the game. The last supplement that I have in my collection, and there are a lot of supplements for this game written by a variety of different people, but we have Buccaneers. So now Buccaneers is going to take the game to sea. There is a port in the kingdom, and there's activities in the ports that you may want to focus on. There's also sea adventures and going to some islands maybe off of the coast and things like that. and you have rules about being a Buccaneers or the kind of community around the port, and that's what this book focuses on. It adds new careers to the game, so if you want to have a new career, you have some options here for those careers, which are really just expanding the careers listed in the core rule book. And after you get through the basic careers, you move into the advanced careers that are offered in the Buccaneer supplement, so you can still advance and stay in the same world. Now you have random tables that you can use for things that happen at the docks. And this is just seed information, you know, what's going on. You're going to have people that you can run into, all of those types of charts and tables and information that a GM can pull from just to create adventures or create something that happens. This is where this book really comes into play if you want to do sailing adventures. It's going to walk you through the steps of creating a map and how you're going to break that map down, how you're going to populate that map for maybe some of the islands or something that's going to happen at sea or where certain things are located, so that you can really fill that all up. And then you got some ship information, what kind of common ships are out there if you want to create a ship, sailing rules, really just taking it into the combat at sea if you want to do that, or just exploring beyond the shorelines of the kingdom. And then you get into sea creatures. So this is going to be your bestiary for sea creatures. And then you get into some new monster abilities, and then you have some more terrors of the sea. And these are just going to be probably more advanced creatures that you can encounter, or people you can encounter going through the sea adventure. And that's what Buccaneer covers. So that was my look through on Warlock. Again, really like this system, especially when I am exploring maybe a supplement that I picked up and I want simple, easy rules, or if I'm just trying to have a real chill, relaxed game and I just want to be immersed in my game and not have rules kind of pulling me out of the game. One of the things I talk about on my channel is I don't like the rules to get in the way of my game. Yes, there's charts and tables you're going to roll on when playing solo. This was not developed as a solo game. It was developed for a GM, and those are GM tools to help keep the immersion of the players moving forward, and those charts are there to help. But you can use those for solo play in any game, really, but they just help you, but the rules don't get in the way. I'm not doing any real complicated math. I'm just rolling a d20 and adding a value to it, and then I'm done. There's nothing else I have to do. You're only going to basically make 2 rolls in this game. You're going to do a skill check, or you're going to do an opposed roll. And it's not that hard to do an opposed roll. You just get 2 different colored d20s, assign one to the combatant or the person you're imposing yourself on, and one for your character. Roll the dice and go. Simple game, fun game, and that is my review. So thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.